Hey, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory that's due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who all learn this truth from whom do well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000 and the rest of the elect. And to you I say shalom. Coming to you back with another lesson through the Spirit, and I'm entitled this one, A Famine of Food and Water Coming Soon. Because we see what's happening with the Strait of Hormuz, with the fertilizer not making it through. You got record heat waves that is being caused by El Super Nino, which ultimately know is Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai that's sending these plagues upon the planet Earth, just like he did during the time of Egypt when he killed the whole cattle and he turned the rivers into blood. And that's all happening over here in America, which is Babylon the Great, spiritual Egypt, spiritual Assyria, spiritual Sodom and Gomorrah, like it says in the book of Revelation chapter 11. And just like Egypt got plague after plague after plague, then eventually that final plague, which was the death angel killing the firstborn from the beast of the field to the Egyptians themselves, the Lord is doing the same thing in this modern day Egypt. Like it says, I'm going to send plagues like Egypt before. That's talking about this Egypt that we're in now. That's why the food supply is being attacked. You got the explosive diarrhea virus going around, causing all the good, the best of the worst foods, whole foods, eggs, cilantro, garlic powder, stuff that ultimately doesn't mess you up like fast food and all this processed food does. But ultimately, who's the one that's doing that is, it's Esau, Edom, but it's ultimately Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. He's the one that's putting it up on the spirit of this devil to have the Strait of Hormuz being closed, to go to war with Iran. He's the one that's causing him to spray all the foods with these chemicals and bio warfare. Why? Because Esau, Edom, that's what he's going to use to get these people to comply to take the mark of the beast, which is the RFID microchip. Because people right now, the topic is right now is the MOTB. People are starting to talk about it, talking about they're not going to hate it or they're not going to take it. But what is Esau Edom going to do? He's going to touch the bread. He's going to touch the food supply. And that's when people are going to bug out, especially these Americans, these Babylonians that are so used to eating 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day, snacks in between, never having a chance to fast. People don't even know what the hell fasting is. All they know is breakfast. And the way they break their breakfast is with a McDonald's Egg McMuffin and a hash brown and an orange juice full of 90 grams of sugar. That's why the Lord is He's gonna use the lack of bread to really touch these people. Because these people, these Americans, they're proud as all hell. They can't be told nothing. But they're going to go from being in that state of being prideful, haughty, thinking that they can't be touched, to they're going to be crying out. They're going to be, having their little ones, bug the hell out. They're going to be bugging out. And what is ultimately a lot of our people going to do, the 2/3 here in America, they're going to take the RFID microchip, the mark of the beast. So I'm going to get this first one. This is 2nd Ezra chapter 15 and verse 5. It says, "Behold, said the Lord, I will bring plagues upon the world, the sword, famine, death, and destruction." And why is the Lord sending these plagues upon the planet Earth? For all the wickedness that has exceedingly polluted the whole earth. The earth is to the point where it's crying out to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, like it says in the book of Romans chapter 8, for the sons of God to be put in power. Because Esau, Edom, he's a devil. He's setting up all these data centers, claiming that they need all this water so they could cool down the computers and the chips, when really this devil is taking all the water, because that's what he's going to use. He's going to use food, water as a weapon. And if people don't have it, that's when people are going to be willing to off each other. That's why it's going to be a civil war, race war. It's going to be martial law because of the lack of bread. Jump down to verse 49, 2 Ezra 15 and 49. I will send plagues upon thee, widowhood, poverty, famine, sword, and pestilence, to waste thy houses with destruction and death. And if you take a look at that order, it says widowhood. What's right around the corner is the military draft. You got Trump talking about he's gonna put boots on the ground. You got all these people that are getting sent over there in the Middle East from the U.S. that are just getting put to death left and right. Talking about, oh man, we only got 10 soldiers dead, when really it's in the hundreds. It says poverty. What is knocking at the door too? Whenever there's a war, there's no jobs. The only job is going to be to fight in the military, to fight that war in the Middle East, in the Battle of Armageddon. It says famine. Yeah, because once everything is shut down, when nobody is working, there's not going to be any 18-wheeler trucks moving around. There's not going to be any farmers planting the crops, reaping a harvest. No, they're going to be worried about surviving. And it says sword and pestilence. Yeah, because once the lack of bread happens, that's when people are going to go from house to house looking for bread. They're going to run to these grocery stores, loot the whole thing. You're going to have people who actually got some canned goods, bags of rice, but then there's going to be people waiting outside for them. It says in pestilence, what's going to happen when people starve to death, when a body starts eating itself? It's going to let go of all these diseases, because nobody's going to be able to bury the dead because of how bad it's going to be out here. But this is the times we're coming into. This is 2 Ezra chapter 16 and 19. It says, behold, famine and plague, tribulation, and anguish are sent to scourge for a minute. Because right now, you got the whole explosive diarrhea going on, but yet people aren't asking themselves, man, why is this happening? Why is the food being contaminated? Why are farmers not yielding crops? Why is the Strait of Hormuz closed? And how does fertilizer not get through, affect the food supply? People aren't asking these questions because Yahweh Bashim Shai is trying to get the attention of our people, which ultimately we know that they're not going to repent. The 2/3, those who were predestined to not receive his truth, to not receive salvation, which was ultimately only reserved for the remnant and the elect. Those are the only ones who are going to pay attention to these scourges, these tools. It's hot as all hell. It's 110 degrees, and be like, oh shit, that's Yahweh Bashim Shai visiting the earth. But it says, verse 20, but for all these things they shall not turn from their wickedness, nor be always mindful of the scourges. Because here is as hot as all hell. You got crops dying, no rain, rivers drying up, inflation at an all-time high, shrinkflation, job layoffs being replaced by AI and automation. People aren't asking themselves, why is this happening? Because Esau, Edom, he's about to bring in that new world order. And he's going to use famine as a weapon to get people to comply, to bow down, to take that MOTB, which is the RFID microchip. It says, verse 21, behold, victuals shall be so good cheap upon earth, that they shall think themselves to be in good case, and even then shall evils grow upon earth, sword, famine, and great confusion. Because victuals, going into your necessities, you're still able to go to the grocery store, get you a couple packs of water, a couple cartons of eggs, bread, milk, a pack of chicken. But people are complaining, oh man, I spent $100 on only 3 bags of groceries. Yeah, but you're still able to buy it. How much more when the hyperinflation hits? When all these countries say, the hell with the dollar. When a pack of bread, loaf of bread is $1,000. A pack of ribeye steak, boom, $5,000. People aren't going to pay that. So what are they going to do? They're going to run to these grocery stores. They're going to loot them. They're going to go to these food distribution centers. They're going to loot them. And once all these stores run dry, what are they going to do next? They're going to go from house to house. They're going to be marauders looking for food, looking for supplies. It says, verse 22, for many of them that dwell upon earth shall perish of famine, and the other that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy. Because you have doomsday preppers. That know the shit's about to hit the fan. So what have they been doing? They've been stocking up on the necessities: food, water, ammo, generators, medicines, so on and so forth. But what are their followers been plotting all this time? They got their IP address. So even these doomsday preppers, they think that, oh man, we good, we chilling, it's not gonna touch me. Shit, really? A lot of these doomsday preppers, they're preparing those provisions for the elect, for the remnant. Like in that movie, Leave the World Behind, when that girl stumbled up on that bunker at the end. That's how it's gonna be for the remnant, the elect. But for the rest of these 2/3 and these heathens, they want to continue to be consumed with the distractions of the bread and circus, with the cares of the world. They're gonna be taken by these things, and then those doomsday preppers, they might got away from the famine for a couple weeks, couple months, but then you're gonna have those marauders come pay him a visit, those looters. It says, verse 23, and the dead shall be cast out as dung, as poop, shit, waste, and there shall be no man to comfort them, for the earth shall be wasted and the city shall be cast down. Because that's how bad it's gonna be out here. Because these Americans, these Babylonians, and people all around the world, but mainly here in America, these people will have that insatiable appetite. They can never have enough. You see the McDonald's line wrapped around at 3 a.m. You see the line at Starbucks wrapped up at 7, 8 in the morning. Why? Because these people have that spirit of Esau, Edom on them. But that's ultimately the Lord fattening these people up for the slaughter, for the sacrifice. This is Ezekiel chapter 4 and verse 16. It says, moreover, he said unto me, Son of man, behold, I will break the staff of bread in Jerusalem, and they shall eat bread by weight and with care, and they shall drink water by measure and with astonishment. And what are these wicked elites, the Klaus Schwabs at the WS, what are they saying? Water is a right. That's why they're draining all the water, because they want to implement those rationing systems. Oh man, you can only take 1 shower a week. You can only drink 2 glasses of water a day. You for sure can't water the grass. You can't brush your teeth. Shit like that. Why? Because Esau, Edom, is the devil. He wants to be like the Most High, but he's not going to be successful. But, like it says in the book of Revelation, they're going to ultimately pay that day's wage, that penny, for a loaf of bread. Hyperinflation. But people aren't going to pay that. People are just going to say, to hell with it. We're going to riot. We're going to take this food. But what's going to happen when these grocery stores run out? It's going to lead to all hell really breaking loose. People resorting to cannibalism, eating their little ones, eating their dogs, eating their cats, eating their own arm. And that's in the scriptures. It says, verse 17, that they may want bread and water and be astonished with another and consume away in their iniquity. So this is going to happen because of the wicked 2/3 of our people and the wickedness of these heathens. They're going to be visited by Yahweh Bashim Shai by the way of pestilence, famine, war, sword. But that's reserved for the 2/3, for the wicked. But what's reserved for the remnant, the elect, is the Lord keeping them, is keeping them during the hour of temptation, because they fully set their trust upon Yahweh Bashim Shai. Even though the situation is going to look dire, the elect, they're not going to bow to me. They're not going to take the MOTB. They're not going to take the RFID microchip. Why? Because they put their full trust and faith in Yahweh Bashim Shai, and the Lord is going to provide. Like it says right here, Isaiah 65 and 13, it says, therefore thus said the Lord, Yahweh Bashim Shai, behold, my servants shall eat, but ye shall be hungry. Behold, my servants shall drink, but ye shall be thirsty. Behold, my servants shall rejoice, but ye shall be ashamed. And that's the contrast between the remnant of Yahweh Bashim Shai, the 144,000, and the 1/3, the large multitude. And then you're going to have the 2/3, the wicked of our people that are scattered throughout the earth, that don't want to take heed to the testimony of Yahweh Bashim Shai. They're the ones that are going to be thirsty. They're the ones that are going to be hungry. They're the ones that are going to be ashamed. But for the elect and the remnant, it says, my servants shall eat. It says, verse 14, behold, my servants shall sing for joy of heart, but ye shall cry for sorrow of heart, and shall howl for vexation of spirit. Because that's when people are really going to lose it. When they haven't ate in days, when their stomach is touching their back, when they haven't drunk any water, They're going to start hallucinating. They're going to start seeing all these things. They're going to start eating their arm, eating their loved ones. And they're going to remember in that day the words of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua being spoken by his prophets. But the Lord is going to keep his elect in his remnant, but he's going to delete these 2/3 by the way of famine and pestilence, for the lack of food and water, and for these heathens too. But that's pretty much the point. I pray that this was edifying unto the elect. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory that's due to Yahweh, B'Shem Yahushai, B'Shem Rakakadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who are learning this truth from whom to rule well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000 and the rest of the elect. And to I say Shalom.